And now Shaw Taylor presents The Law Game.
How well do you know the law? You'll find out if you listen in for the next half hour to The Law Game. It's an entertainment during which three well-known personalities are asked to judge the results of law cases and give the reason for their decisions. And here, with the cases and the rules of the game, is your chairman, Shaw Taylor.
Good evening. This is the 95th programme of The Law Game. So those listeners who stayed with us right from the beginning should know almost enough to be qualified lawyers by now. They will also know how simple the game is to play. We have 3 fictitious cases, all based on real ones that dealt with the same points of law. Each will be given an award-winning performance by the trio of talented thespians we call our repertory company, and when enough evidence has been presented, I'll ring this bell. And that signals that it's time for the panel to put on their thinking caps, sift through the facts and tell me which side they think won. Under the BBC's gaming laws, invented just for this show, they start with 50 points each. They can bet as many of those points as they like upon their verdict. I'll match their points for a correct answer and double up with odds of 2 to 1 if they give anything like the right legal reasons. Last week's panel were remanded in custody for a week, so here, facing a retrial, are Alan Titchmarsh, June Whitfield and Alfred Marks. Alan Titchmarsh, we all tend to lose our temper from time to time because something happens which we think ought not to, and we probably say there ought to be a law against that. So looking back on those times, is there a new law that you would like to see enacted?
Well, it's not so much a new law, but it relates to the people within the constabulary who I suppose get my back up as much as they get anybody else's back up all the time. The traffic wardens. Now, we have one in our little Hampshire town, and he's known as the Yellow Peril. And, because he comes around in his huge, great overcoat of navy blue serge with a very faded yellow band around his head, and he menaces you by looking. That's all, just looking at you and looking at your car. And I parked outside the post office once to run in for a stamp. And it's a double yellow line, and there was a queue. And I kept looking out the plate glass window, thinking, I'm all right. I got my stamp, and I ran out, and he was there. And he said, you realise, of course, that I can report you to the chief constable. So I said, oh, really? He said, yes, he said, and your name may appear in the paper. So I thought, oh, that'll be a change. So I decided the best way to take steam out of traffic wardens was, instead of them wearing navy blue and yellow, put them in pink. And I reckon a traffic warden wearing pink would be much nicer to you than one in navy blue and yellow.
June Whitfield, what makes you angry enough to want to have banned by law?
Well, I would really like to repeal or change a law that's just been passed, which is the one that's doing away with dog licences. I really would like to see the dog licence go up to, say, £10, with, of course, exceptions for guide dogs and elderly people and, certain categories exempt, because then we could afford the wardens to go around and actually, if they, as we all do, see somebody's dog on a lead actually fouling a footpath or something, on the spot fines, and which would again swell the coffers and give them more money to perhaps take dogs out for walks for people who can't do it themselves.
Very good point. I'll go along with that. How about you, Alfred Marks? Any new laws that you would like to see put on the statute book?
What I would like enforced, not a new law, what I would like enforced is the parking of cars on pavements. If you've seen as many blind people and people in wheelchairs having to try and negotiate a car that they only expect to be there and coming to harm by banging themselves and falling over, I think the law should be enforced.
Well said, Alfred. Right, let's get down to the game. That was the panel. Now here's the repertory company with tonight's first case. It started one day on a country road when a police motorcyclist stopped a tow truck with an empty car attached to the back of it.
Sorry to stop you, sir. We're looking for witnesses. Well, there's been a robbery at the post office. Has a blue Ford Escort passed you, speeding in the opposite direction?
No, but then I only joined this road about half a mile back. Sorry I can't help you.
Oh, that's all right, sir. Oh, that's a bit of a state, that car behind you. Accident, was it?
No, it was just towing in an abandoned vehicle.
Was this your tow truck, sir?
No, I borrowed it from my boss. I'm a car mechanic at O'Hara's service garage at Waterfall Lane. You're welcome to check it if you want to.
Oh, no, that's all right. I believe you. Hey, isn't that the car that's been up on the common for about 3 weeks?
Yeah, it's disgusting the way people just dump things anywhere they like. Look at the way it's been vandalised.
Yeah.
Headlamps busted, aerials snapped in half,
I
wing
know.
mirrors shattered. It's become a right dangerous hazard, especially with young kids playing in that area. I'm doing everyone a
That's
favour
right.
taking it away.
And yourself the biggest favour of all.
What do you mean?
Well, should fetch a couple of hundred in scrap value. Tried driving it away, did you?
What? No, officer, no, not without insurance cover. That'd be illegal. Anyway, the tank's empty.
Have you given any thought to the fact that you might be taking away someone else's property?
Well, not when it's been abandoned. That means it no longer belongs to anybody.
You're sure of that, are you, sir?
Oh, stands to reason, doesn't it? It's like someone taking something out my dustbin. I've thrown it away because I don't want it no more. So anyone taking it isn't stealing. It's been dumped just like this car was.
Supposing it had been stolen, sir, was say for a robbery and then abandoned by the thieves up there on the common.
Well, your blokes patrol the common regular, don't they? I mean, if it were on your list of stolen cars, you'd have informed the rightful owner by now. Or taken it in to check for fingerprints or whatever. It's been there for 3 weeks, so it certainly hasn't been stolen.
Before I let you go on your way, sir, I think I'd better check that. If it has been abandoned, then you can go ahead. Though the owner might find himself in a bit of trouble for dumping it on the common.
Yeah, well, do it as quick as you can, will you? I promise to have this truck back in half an hour. My boss will do his nut if I'm not back soon.
769. Come in, 769.
769 reading you. Go ahead, please.
That white Mini Metro is owned by Neil Benson of Enfield in London. I spoke to his wife, who said he felt ill, abandoned the car, and walked across the common and got a taxi to the hospital. It was a mild heart attack. He's home now, ordered to rest in bed for a while longer. They intended coming down here to collect the car next week.
So it hasn't been permanently abandoned, then?
No, definitely not.
Thank you, Base. That's all I needed to know. Over and out. Right, sir. It does look like you jumped to a rather hasty conclusion, doesn't it?
I'm sorry, officer. I genuinely believed it was dumped there. I'll take it back, of course.
Oh, too late for that now, sir. By removing that vehicle without the owner's consent, you are, well, as far as I can see, guilty of theft. And I expect that's what you'll be charged with.
And indeed, panel, he was charged with theft, and the prosecution did not dispute that the car mechanic honestly believed the car was permanently abandoned. But did that make any difference to whether he was found guilty as charged? Alan Titchmarsh.
Ooh, poor fella. He sounded nice, didn't he?
You're a nice man.
Yeah, it's a shame, really. I think he probably lost. No, I mean, when they'd found out the car was owned by somebody, that really rather put the lid on it, I would have thought. Mind you, I do think that police constable, he's a real kick up the what's-it for having left it there for 3 weeks and not actually, if it was his patch, and he sounds fairly rustic and rural, and he probably should have noticed, oh, there's a car over there, you know. He should have rung back to that very well-spoken lady at base earlier and found out who'd left it there. So I reckon that the police constable should get a reprimand from his superior for not acting more quickly.
Right.
But I'm afraid the chap would lose, and he was certainly guilty of nicking a car that belonged to somebody.
Ah, it's a bit sad, isn't it?
It is, really.
Whitfield, what do you think?
I would have thought that the chap who was had bothered to put it on his truck and tow it away should actually have reported it to the police and then said, look, I've got this truck. Would you like me to tow it away or something? Or can I have it? But I think
should have asked first.
I think he should have reported it to the police and inquired about it, yes. So I think perhaps he's in the wrong.
Still guilty?
I think he was wrong.
In law?
In law.
June and I think that he got running by the law, but he got the OBE from the Keep Britain Tidy group.
Yes, I'll second that.
So you think he was found guilty. Alfred Marks, how do you view this one?
Straightforward case of barefaced nicking. The car obviously had a legal owner, obviously. Even if the owner abandoned it, it becomes the responsibility of the owner. And if somebody should certainly reported the car lying around for 3 weeks, the police would probably have prosecuted the man for abandoning it and causing obstruction, I've no doubt. Illegal abandonment is such a charge? Perhaps there isn't, but it should be. It should have been reported to the police by somebody. I think the fact that he says he thought it was abandoned, therefore, that's no claim, there's no right in law. That is stealth.
It had been vandalised, of course, and there were things broken on it, so it did look abandoned.
Well, of course it's vandalised. I mean, kids go up and steal hub plates and steal tyres. Nonetheless, the bodywork, the car as a car, was somebody's legal possession.
Right, all right. You won't be shifted on that. All three of you say
No
that
way.
poor old car mechanic is guilty, and you've got 50 points to bet. Let's start off with Alan. What will you bet on?
I got a wave of confidence here, Shaw. It's probably totally misplaced. I'm gonna really rash and go for 30 points on this.
30 points.
So confident do I feel.
30 points that he was found guilty. June Whitfield.
We're all very confident. Probably wrong. I'll go 25.
25. 25 points he was found guilty. Alfred Marks.
Well, so confident am I, I'm going to bet 10 points.
10
That's how
points.
much faith I've got in me.
10 points. The car mechanic was found guilty. The car mechanic was found not guilty. The judge said that he had not acted dishonestly because he genuinely and reasonably thought the car was dumped or abandoned and therefore could be taken by anyone. He did not think he was depriving the owner of his property. There was no intent
Good
about
judgment.
it.
Very good.
A very good judgment. By a bit of shrewd betting there, we have Alan at 20 points, June at 25, and Alfred Marks, with that crafty 10 that he put on, is only down to 40. So, Alfred Marks, you are in the lead. Our second case is set in an employment tribunal where a medical secretary is claiming she was unfairly dismissed from a private clinic for which she worked. Now, we're going to speed the case up a bit because we have to get it all into a half-hour show. But there will be enough evidence for our panel to base their verdict on. Let's join the proceedings at the point where the doctor who fired Angela Koss is being questioned by Miss Koss's counsel.
Dr. Koenig, as a medical man, one would expect you to be a compassionate person. Have you no sympathy at all with my client's views on abortion?
Yes, I am a man of compassion, but my job is to do the best I can for my patients. It is therefore the mother-to-be, rather, that I have to be concerned with.
You have not answered my question.
If you want to know whether I think an abortion is the murder of an unborn baby, I just say it is not for me to decide that. In certain circumstances it may be, in others not.
You have known Miss Koss for some time now, about 4 years, I believe.
Yes, she worked till recently for a lady doctor at the clinic who left, ironically enough, to have a baby. My own former secretary retired, and Angela was assigned to me.
Did you have any objection to that?
No, well, none at all. She came to me highly recommended as being both fastidiously punctual and efficient.
And you were aware of her deep religious beliefs?
Vaguely, I make it a point of never discussing either religion or politics with my colleagues. They too often lead to arguments and bad feeling. We are there to treat the sick, and that is all.
In treating the sick, Dr. Koenig, how many women have you recommended for abortions over, say, the past 12 months?
I have no idea. Just as many as I thought were necessary.
Would you say 10, 20, 30 perhaps?
Probably about half that, maybe 15.
15 lives terminated at your recommendation.
Or 15 lives saved. I only prescribe an abortion when it is lawful.
Lawful in your opinion?
Yes, in my opinion. Angela may have other opinions, but I would suggest that I am more qualified to know than she is.
And when she refused to type any of your letters in which you recommended an abortion, what did you do?
I told her that it was part of her job, and that if she did not do it, she would be dismissed.
Knowing that it was against her religious convictions, and that those letters were so few and far between, that you could have done them yourself, or had someone else's secretary do them for you.
That was not the point. I was not asking her to type letters to do with, say, euthanasia or dishing out large doses of dangerous drugs. That would have been illegal. It's not as if I was asking her to take part in or even be present at an actual abortion.
Your point being that your own recommendation for an abortion made it legal.
Mine and the doctor to whom the letter would be addressed.
Thank you, Dr. Koenig. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
If I may, sir, I'd like to recall Angela Cos to the stand.
Yes, you may. Return to the stand, please, Miss Cos, and be aware that you are still under oath.
Miss Cos, how many letters did you refuse to type before Dr. Koenig dismissed you?
2. He threatened me with dismissal after the first one, then carried out that threat after the second.
You heard him say just now that he was not asking you to actually participate in an abortion. But am I not right in suggesting that you clearly believed, and said so at the time, that typing those letters of recommendation was part of the chain of events that led to an eventual abortion?
Yes, but he said that no matter what the contents of his letters were, if I refused to type any of them, I'd be fired for, as he called it, misconduct.
Miss Cos, would you please read out loud for the court this part of Section 4 of the 1967 Abortion Act, the part I've marked?
No person shall be under any duty, whether by contract or by any statutory or other legal requirement, to participate in any treatment authorized by this Act to which he has a conscientious objection.
Has a conscientious objection. Thank you. Now, I ask you finally, Miss Cos, are you personally convinced that Dr. Koenig knew you had a conscientious objection to abortions before he dismissed you?
Yes. I made that very plain to him.
Not an easy one, this panel. Judging on what you've just heard, was Angela Cos unfairly dismissed or was she not? June Whitfield.
As you say, very, very tricky one. I think if that law extends to writing letters and anything at all to do with having any part of an abortion, I think perhaps she was wrongfully dismissed because he could have perhaps got someone else to write the letters.
Now, you've heard the law, so you must judge whether it extends that far.
I'll say it does extend that far. I
It
say
does.
that she was wrongfully dismissed.
Right. Alfred?
I reluctantly have to come to the conclusion he was fairly dismissed. And the doctors are the only people qualified under the law to make the decision whether to abort or not. The secretary cannot take it upon herself to decide whether an abortion should occur or not. She was trying to subvert the law of the land as it was passed in Parliament by attempting to influence somebody, by refusing to write the letter, I think. She tried to bring about a negative, in other words, she was trying to avoid the abortion. And it was not her position to do that. She was warned, and I think she was fairly dismissed.
You say she was fairly dismissed. Alan, how do you feel about it?
Alfred says that the employer made it very clear to her what her obligations were in the previous letter, but similarly, she also made clear to the employer that her reasons for objecting were reasons of conscience. Therefore, I think, members of the jury sitting down there, that if in this land there is any justice at all, that this lady here should be allowed to vote with her conscience, having warned her employer that she didn't wish to be a party to this act, and I don't think she should be dismissed. I think she was unfairly dismissed.
Right. So that leaves Alfred as the odd man out, who says that she was fairly dismissed, that she lost her case. June, I'll start with you. 25 points you've got. What will you bet?
10.
Playing my game, eh?
Right.
Can't afford any more.
Alfred, let me come to you. 40 points you have.
20.
20. And Alan.
Oh, so good am I at this game that after question 1, I've only got 20 left. I'll stick with my conscience and bet 15.
Will you now? Right. So 2 of you say that she was unfairly dismissed, but Alfred stands out and says that she was fairly dismissed and so she lost her case. And in fact, Angela Cos did lose her case. The tribunal held that she was not unfairly dismissed. And I'll tell you why. It hinged on the word which you didn't latch on to. It was the word participate in that Abortion Act. Here it meant taking part in. And as a medical secretary, she was not being required to take part in the abortion in that sense. She was simply asked to do a job, and as you quite rightly said, Alfred, she had been warned once, so therefore, hard luck. So it puts you in the lead with 60 marks, June with 15, but Alan, all is not lost. You still have 5 points to play with.
If the next question's about gardening, you're in.
Right, here we go then. Our final case tonight, which began after the police arrested a man who had allegedly robbed a warehouse and had been positively identified by the night watchman who saw him get into a waiting car, which immediately sped off. Now, they knew a woman was at the wheel of the getaway car, and they strongly suspected it was the man's girlfriend. The next day, that same lady answered her doorbell to a detective.
Christine Millichap?
Yeah, that's me.
Detective Sergeant Benson. I'm here about the warehouse raid.
Warehouse raid? What warehouse raid?
I think we'd better discuss this inside, don't you?
All right, you can come in. I've no idea what you're on about. I'll just making myself a cuppa. What one?
Oh, thank you. All I want from you are some truthful answers. Where were you on the night of February the 14th?
What time?
Between midnight and 2 a.m.
In the bedroom, asleep.
Could you prove that?
Only if the neighbours heard me snoring. I was on my own.
You're lying.
I'm not.
Of course you are. I know where you were, driving a stolen Rover from Beckford's warehouse in Colney Lane. And I do have proof.
Like what?
Your fingerprints on the door handle of the car. You wiped the steering wheel clean, but if you did the door handle too, you didn't do it properly.
All right, so you got someone's fingerprints. I've never been in trouble, so you've got no record of my prints.
Haven't we? You were drinking at the Lamb and Flag earlier today.
Yes.
So was one of my men. He picked up your glass, prints and all. They matched perfectly. So why waste both your time and mine? You may as well confess now and have done with it.
I'm saying nothing till I've seen my solicitor.
Fair enough. My car's outside. Let's go down together and see him now. Put your coat on.
You say, Sergeant, that you have fingerprints from the car door handle that have been positively identified as Miss Millichap's?
Without any shadow of doubt. The night watchman said a woman was driving, and we've already got her boyfriend for the actual robbery. Conclusive evidence.
Do you mind if I have a private word with Miss Millichap, Sergeant?
Oh, not at all, Mr. Rowley. Off the record, if I was in your position, I'd have no hesitation in advising her to own up to it. I expect she was under the influence of that villain. Judges tend to go easier on women accomplices in those circumstances, especially if they voluntarily confess, if you know what I mean. Well, I'll wait in your outer office.
So, what do I do now?
You did do it, Christine, didn't you?
Of course I did. I thought I'd covered my tracks.
Look, there's no way you can get away with it. You better make out a full confession, but as the sergeant says, play up the threats he made to you if you didn't go through with it.
Well, won't that make it worse for Bob?
Oh, with his track record, he's in so deep it won't make much difference. It's your skin we've got to think of saving. My advice is to do what the sergeant says.
What'll happen to me now?
I expect you'll be charged with participation in the robbery and be up before the beak for a preliminary hearing in the morning.
All because I wasn't careful enough wiping those prints off the handle.
You were. I made all that up.
You what?
I made it up. I had a strong suspicion it was you. No definite evidence to base a case on. Now I've got a confession, so I don't need any evidence.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's put the panel in a tizzy, that has. And it put the solicitor in a tizzy as well, because when he heard that, he tried to get the court to disregard the confession because it was obtained by false pretenses. And without that confession, there was no other evidence. So, did Christine Millichap get convicted, or did she not? Alfred Marks, you are obviously the man to come to in this case.
Well, I have a strange feeling in my water that she got away with it. Because, as you say, it was... he acted as a sort of agent provocateur and falsely obtained evidence. And I've got a feeling that because of the tactics employed by the police, that a dim view was taken and the judge let her off. I think they knew she did it, and she got away with it because of the attitude of the police. It wouldn't be the first time that they've screwed things up.
A lot of nodding going on over there. June, do you agree?
Yes, I do agree. I think that it would be a technicality of some kind that she'd get away with it.
How do you mean a technicality?
Well, because there weren't actually any matching fingerprints, or, the evidence was not actually there.
So you think her confession would simply not stand up, or...?
I think her confession was only made to the police inspector, and she could have afterwards denied it.
She'd get away with it?
I think she'd get away with it, yes.
Well, we've got two very lawful people there. What about Alan Titchmarsh?
This policeman sounds an awful lot like my traffic warden. This is very, very difficult. It depends whether... I would have thought that the judgment would here have been made at the very beginning of the case, when it took place in court. Either it was thrown out the instant the judge sat down and heard this evidence, and it was... because of the way it was carried out, it was chucked out because it had not been done in accordance with due procedure of the law.
They were questioned in the witness box, of course. The detective had to go in the witness box and admit that he had achieved that by false pretenses.
But she did admit she'd been naughty.
Yes, she did.
Therefore, she had committed the crime.
She had.
And had agreed that she'd committed the crime.
And
therefore, they couldn't let her off a crime that she had agreed she'd committed. I reckon that she was done, and so was the policeman. He was probably dismissed.
Rapped over the knuckles?
Yep.
Well, not dismissed, just taken down a few pegs.
Yes, just, disciplined is the
right,
word, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, made to be a traffic warden for a few weeks.
Christine is guilty. Right, Alfred Marks, you have 60 points. You are well in the lead. Unless, of course...
Yes, it's a very convincing case, Alan Putz, I must say.
He's got 5 points to prove it at the moment.
Yeah, well, I think I'll stick with mine. I'll go 20. 30, what the heck?
30, yes, that's
points,
what I like to see. A real gambler. Yeah. June Whitfield, what do you think?
Well, I don't think I'll ever make a magistrate. I'd better blow the lot, I think. Is it the last one?
It is.
I'll go 15.
You will? All right.
Go for gold.
Alan, you have 5 points, and you say that she was convicted.
Go the lot, Alan.
I'm going to be totally rash here. 4. I lost everything last week. At least this week I'll finish up on 1.
Right. 2 of you say she got away with it. Alan says she didn't. She was convicted. Christine Millichap was not convicted. And the case against her was dismissed. The court held that the confession was not admissible evidence, as it had been obtained by hoodwinking Christine and her solicitor. If the confession had been admitted, the trial would not have been a fair one. And we do insist on fair trials in this country, so she walked away even having admitted the crime. And, Alan, you walk away with 1 point.
Do you think I'll ever be called to the bar?
June Whitfield, 15 points you get, makes you up to 30. And Alfred Marks, I think you deserve having your points doubled because you got very close to the right answer. Our winner with 120 points, Alfred Marks. And a marvellous winner, because that was not only the last of tonight's cases, but also the last in this present series of Law Game. But I think we'll be back before long. We always are. So until then, I would just say farewell for now on behalf of tonight's panel of Alan Titchmarsh, June Whitfield and Alfred Marks, our repertory company, who were John Badley, Diana Olson and Paul Sir, deviser and writer Brad Ashton, legal advisor Doug Cracknell, producer Lissa Evans, and me, Shaw Taylor. Bye-bye.
And as Shaw said, that was the last Law Game in the present series. In a few minutes following the news and sport, Brian Matthew will be chatting with more people from the world of the arts and playing your favourite music in Round Midnight.
Radio 2.
It's 11 o'clock. At the news desk, James Alexander Gordon.
The Roman Catholic Primate of all Ireland, Cardinal Tommaso Fee, has described the death of a 24-year-old civilian at an army checkpoint at the weekend as murder.